The full story has been completed. The exciting story begins now. The girl I loved most was my homeroom teacher. During morning exercises, my homeroom teacher found my love letter. To punish me, she called in my parents. She made my mother stand in front of the whole class and read my love letter aloud. I was going crazy, because the girl I loved was the homeroom teacher herself. I desperately wanted to stop everything, but my dad stood beside me. He felt humiliated, so he pressed hard on my shoulders. My mom stood on the podium, trembling in embarrassment. The homeroom teacher said coldly, "Senior year is the most important period for all of you, but some students don't have their minds on studying at all. Who knows what filthy things they're thinking about?" She picked up my love letter and continued, "I found this inside your desk during morning exercises. Now let your mother read it out loud, with plenty of emotion." "Dear who? Who exactly is your dear?" She handed the love letter to my mom. My mom took it helplessly. She said softly, "Teacher, children also have their dignity. Can't we handle this privately? Teenage romance is the one thing our school absolutely cannot tolerate. If I don't make an example out of him today, how am I supposed to manage this class in the future?" My son only wrote a love letter and never even gave it away. He planned to confess only after graduation. The fact that he even had such thoughts is already wrong. If the parents refuse to read it today, then take him home to reflect for a week. My mom immediately fell silent. My dad couldn't help speaking up. "Teacher, we'll read it. If he stays home for a week during senior year, he'll miss too many lessons." The homeroom teacher nodded. "Fine. Read it loudly. Let the whole class hear clearly who his dear is and who he's in love with." My mom had no choice but to start reading the letter. "I still remember how gentle you used to be. Under the sunset, your hair fell loosely over your shoulders, carrying a faint lavender scent. I don't know why, but now you wear glasses. Tie your hair in a ponytail and always act cold toward others." The whole class looked at me in shock. The homeroom teacher adjusted her glasses and flicked her ponytail. She sneered. "Looks like the girl you like is quite She knows senior year is the most important time, so she understands how to hide her beauty and focus on what truly matters. But what about you? Your mind is full of filthy thoughts." I stared blankly at the homeroom teacher. I still remembered how beautiful she once was. Under the sunset, her hair flowed loosely, carrying a faint lavender scent. She gently kissed my forehead, and her lips carried a sweet fragrance too. Soft and delicate, it was the scent of lychee-flavored lip balm. That day, my lips were cracked, so she took out her own lip balm, cupped my face, and gently applied it to my lips. Just then, my mom happened to read this part aloud. Embarrassed, she read, "What I can never forget most is the moment you helped me apply lip balm." I was very shy, yet I still had a boy's stubborn pride. I pretended to dislike it and said it was already used by you. "But you said my lips were cracked and bleeding." I shyly closed my eyes, and you chuckled softly while gently applying it for me. The homeroom teacher slammed her hand hard on the desk. She said coldly, "I take back what I said earlier. It seems this girl has no self-respect either. She's completely shameless. All of you listen carefully. If I catch anyone in our class sharing the same lip balm between boys and girls, I'll call their parents immediately." After saying that, she nodded at my mom. "Continue reading." My mom softly read, "Even after so many years, I still can't forget this. To you, I may only be a passerby in your life, but to me, you changed my entire life. I heard your grades are excellent. You'll definitely get into a top university someday. But I'm different. Everyone says all I know is skipping classes, and that with my poor grades, I'll never amount to anything. You're like a noble young lady from ancient times, while I'm nothing but a lowly nobody." The homeroom teacher couldn't help laughing when she heard this. She said, "Here comes the typical teenage boy's dramatic writing style. Girls in the class, listen carefully from now on. Boys love using these sentimental, self-pitying, disgusting lines. They lower themselves deliberately, while placing girls on a pedestal, then use retreat as a way to advance, trying to gain sympathy from girls." All the girls in class nodded seriously and listened attentively. My mom trembled with anger. She continued reading in order to follow your footsteps. "I stopped skipping classes. Every day, I wake up at 2 in the morning to cook and prepare medicine for my mom. The homeroom teacher suddenly felt something was off. She interrupted my mom and asked, "Wait a second. What do you mean by cooking and preparing medicine?" My mom wiped away her tears and said softly, "Teacher, when he was little, I got seriously ill and was bedridden for an entire year. His father had to work to support the family, so he often skipped classes to come home early and cook and prepare medicine. That's why his grades were so poor. Later, he suddenly decided to study seriously and woke up very early every day to do housework, all to take care of me." The homeroom teacher awkwardly responded, "Oh." She nervously brushed her bangs aside and said, "Continue reading." "Couldn't tell at all. So you're quite the devoted romantic, huh? You've liked her since childhood, haven't you?" My mom continued reading. "Loving you is difficult because you walk so far ahead and so high above. In order to reach you, I studied twice as hard. I chased after your footsteps and got into a provincial key high school." At that moment, my homeroom teacher immediately interrupted me. She said, "Our school is not a provincial key high school. It's because your mind was full of romance that you failed to get into one. Class, this is a bloody lesson. The girl he liked managed to get into a provincial key high school, while he missed the chance to be with the girl he liked. What does this prove? It proves that if you don't study hard, you'll even miss out on love." My mom said softly, "Teacher." The next sentence my son wrote is, "I didn't get accepted, but I met you here instead." The homeroom teacher's expression instantly became awkward. She said, "Looks like that girl didn't focus on studying either." Continue reading. I looked at the embarrassed expression on the teacher's face. I knew she had gotten accepted back then. I once thought I would never be able to follow her footsteps. But what I never expected was that after coming here, she would become my homeroom teacher. Fate had arranged for us to meet again. My mom continued reading. When you met me again, you only smiled and nodded at me. I thought you surely didn't remember that little boy sitting on the ground crying back then. At that moment, the homeroom teacher exaggeratedly cried out, "Oh my goodness." The little boy who was crying. I was so embarrassed that goosebumps covered my whole body. This dramatic writing style is seriously cracking me up. Why do you love crying so much? The girls in class nodded in agreement. Some girls even started rubbing their arms, as if they really had goosebumps. The homeroom teacher sneered at me and said, "Do you feel so embarrassed now that you want to cry again? You little crying boy." Looking at the way she teased me playfully, I only found her incredibly adorable. Good heavens, why did every single movement of hers carry such girlish charm? If my embarrassment could bring her some amusement, I made her busy work. Then I was completely willing. My mom continued reading. That year, my mother underwent surgery. The doctor said there was only a 50% chance she would wake up. I was terrified that I might lose my mother forever. I cried so helplessly. Wait, the homeroom teacher hurriedly interrupted my mom. She stared straight into my eyes and asked, "You cry because of this?" I nodded. The homeroom teacher turned around and bowed sincerely to my mother. She solemnly said, "I apologize. I didn't know this was the reason he cried. I sincerely want to say I'm sorry to you." The girls who had laughed earlier all became awkward and flustered as well. They lowered their heads. My mom also wiped away her tears and continued reading the letter. When I was younger, I wasn't sure about these feelings. When you kissed my forehead, I thought it was only a beautiful memory that stayed in my heart. But when I met you again, my heart began pounding wildly. It felt as though everything around me became silent, leaving only the sound of my heartbeat. Your smile seemed to move in slow motion, etched deeply into my mind. That was when I realized I truly loved you. From the day I met you again, I became certain that I genuinely loved you. I'm grateful that I missed the provincial key high school by 10 points, because it allowed me to meet you earlier. The homeroom teacher coldly replied, "Failing the exam should make you feel ashamed of yourself, not grateful." Then suddenly, the homeroom teacher realized something was wrong. She asked my mom, "He only missed the provincial key high school by 10 points. My father took the initiative to answer, "Teacher, this is my fault. Those 10 lost points were from the physical education exam." Just like my son said, our family are farmers. I'm only a bricklayer. That day, I went to repair someone's roof and fell from the rooftop. The day before my son's pay entrance exam, he still had to carry me to find a doctor. The homeroom teacher asked, 10 points could have raised his score from 70 to 80. It would only cost our family several thousand yuan, and my son couldn't bear to spend it. The homeroom teacher fell silent. She clasped her hands and paced back and forth on the podium, as if hesitating about whether to let my mom continue reading. The whole class also looked at the homeroom teacher awkwardly. Finally, the homeroom teacher said, "At least his character is still good, so since you have good moral character and still have the opportunity of the college entrance exam, why would you choose puppy love and ruin your own future?" My mom hurriedly said, "My child is already 18. Back then, he sacrificed so much to take care of me." The homeroom teacher firmly interrupted, "Even if he's 18, he's still a student at school." My mom could only continue reading. "These past few years have been the happiest days of my life. Every day in class, I looked forward to seeing you," the homeroom teacher said sternly. "In class, what you should be looking at is the teacher and the blackboard. Your attention should be on me." I nodded. My eyes had always been fixed on her anyway. My mom continued reading. "I once thought about confessing my feelings to you, but I kept hesitating until the day you came to my house and sat on my bed. You were wearing beautiful branded clothes, completely out of place with my shabby home. That scene deeply pierced my heart." At that instant, the homeroom teacher flew into a rage. She raised a book and hurled it hard at me. "So the girl even went to your house and even sat on your bed?" I didn't dodge it. I faced her directly. That day, she came for a home visit. I still remember wanting to pour her a cup of tea, but in my house, there wasn't even a decent glass cup. I could only open the National Day gift box, a carton of Xianjiapio milk tea given by my mom's factory, and make a cup for her. Our family could never bear to open gifted items, because gifts could be regifted to other relatives. That day was very cold. My parents only dared to turn on the heater in my room. The homeroom teacher held the milk tea and sat on my bed. She took a sip through the straw, then looked up and smiled sweetly. She said, "It's so warm here." I sat beside her. It was the first time in many years that I was alone with her again. Everyone else feared home visits, but I alone hoped that day would last a little longer. I couldn't bear to let her leave, yet I also didn't want her to see too much of my poverty. By the time my mom read this part of my love letter, tears were streaming down her face. "The moment you sat in my house, I wanted so badly to tell you that I had searched for you for many years. I had chased after you for many years. I loved you like the wind traveling thousands of miles. I loved you like clouds drifting thousands of miles, day after day, year after year. That little boy who once collected cardboard boxes to help support the family. Had truly fallen in love with a girl far beyond his reach. I was once full of passion, thinking I could someday rise above everyone else. But when you wore a Chanel scarf and looked like a beautiful doll, sitting in my shabby home, I finally understood that you were ultimately someone who could never truly belong in my life." My mom collapsed softly onto the floor while holding the letter, wiping her tears. She burst into tears and cried, "Why would you write something like this? You're wonderful. The ones holding you back have always been us. It's your father and me who are useless. You've always been such a good child." The homeroom teacher panicked. She hurriedly tried to help my mom up and anxiously said, "Please don't do this. How is my son not worthy of her?" My mom cried until her voice turned hoarse. "He helped with housework since he was very young. He took care of me by my sickbed. Every day I gave him 5 yuan for breakfast and for the bus ride. But every morning, he only held a steamed bun in his hands, hugged his English textbook, and walked to school at 5 in the morning. My son is the best child in the whole world. It's always been us who are useless. Why would he write things like this? How is he unworthy of anyone?" My father lowered his head. I remained silent. The love letter scattered across the floor. The homeroom teacher held on to my mom helplessly, completely at a loss. She said softly, "I never thought things would turn out like this. Let's stop reading. We'll stop here." She took out tissues and wiped away my mom's tears. Then she anxiously addressed the class. "Students, this discussion has gone off track, but I need to make one thing clear to all of you. Never look down on a poor young person. You are all in the prime of youth. Never carry such feelings of inferiority." One classmate couldn't help saying, "I've been to his house. His family really does look poor. If that girl wears Chanel, then his family really isn't on the same level. Their parents are from completely different worlds." The homeroom teacher became anxious. She hurriedly said, "The first 30 years of life depend on your parents, but the next 30 years depend on your children. The thinking in this love letter is wrong. You haven't even begun to realize your own value yet. Life has endless possibilities. Don't compare your worth with other people's parents. I stood up and walked toward the podium. I picked up the love letter. I looked at her panicked expression. In her emotional state, my mom accidentally pulled off the teacher's hair tie as her long hair fell loose. The sunset glow shone upon her face. That year, that day, she had been just as beautiful too. The adults thought I didn't understand when they told me to go play in the park, but actually, I understood everything. The cold wind howled. I sat crying in the park outside the hospital. She walked up to me. Back then, she wasn't as strict as she is now. She dressed youthfully, with a shoulder bag slung across her body, chewing bubble gum. When I looked up, she blew a bubble and handed me a piece of gum too. She said, "Why is the little kid crying?" At that moment, I pointed at the hospital and cried, "My mom is going to leave me." She immediately understood what I meant. She rubbed my head and said, "Don't think nonsense. With such an adorable son, who would ever want to leave?" But I still cried, so she crouched down and pulled me into her arms. When people are sad, they always long for a warm embrace. I didn't dare cry in front of adults. I knew that because of my mother's illness, my father was running around everywhere, living every day with his nerves stretched tight. That day, I cried my heart out in the arms of a stranger. She didn't say a single word of comfort. She only gently patted my back, just like my mother used to when I was little. I remember how the sunset shone upon her. I remember her faint lavender scent. I remember the warmth of her embrace. I remember the scent of that lip balm. And I will always remember that after I had cried enough, she kissed my forehead and told me that if boys can't hold it in, then they should cry once. After crying, they're still real men. I held the love letter and stared directly into her eyes. She asked nervously, "What are you doing?" I said, "I wrote it. I loved her, so I'll finish reading it myself." She anxiously said, "Don't read it anymore. Teacher already knows you have good character. Let today's matter end here. As long as you don't give this love letter to her before graduation, I won't blame you." I gave a bitter smile. If I don't confess now, there may never be another chance. Since I can't hide it anymore, why should I continue hiding? I'd rather face my own heart, honestly and openly, in front of the entire class. I continued reading the love letter. When you read this love letter, by the time you read this love letter, I will already have packed my bags and left. Please allow me to selfishly say goodbye to you. What do you mean? The homeroom teacher interrupted me. She said anxiously, "What do you mean by leaving? Are you not coming back to school next semester?" I did not answer her question. Instead, I continued reading the letter. I'm sorry that I won't be able to step onto a university campus. I longed to experience youth like everyone else, but I cannot afford to waste any more precious time. The homeroom teacher immediately said, "Don't say things like that. Who says studying is a waste of youth? If you work hard and get into the same university as that girl, then couldn't you spend 4 years together?" I softly continued reading, especially 4 years later, when you are 28 years old. The people pursuing you by then will probably already be pillars of society, and I will just be a young man starting out. The whole classroom fell silent. Everyone stared at me blankly. The homeroom teacher widened her eyes as well. She asked in disbelief, "That girl you're 24 this year, she's 6 years older than you. She's not a student. She is you. The person I have deeply loved all this time has always been you." The homeroom teacher looked completely dizzy. She nearly stumbled backward. She quickly grabbed the teacher's desk behind her for support. Panting, she stared at me the letter and smiled. 2 years ago, you happily told us that this was your first time being a homeroom teacher. And 10 years ago, I also happily told myself that for the first time in my life, someone had hugged me and given me a warmth I would never forget. You may not remember the kindness you casually gave back then, nor know that I was that foolish love-struck boy. Fate arranged for us to meet again, but it also made me realize the distance between us. I originally planned to spend this semester treating every single day as the last time we could be together, cherishing each moment. But since things have already come to this, it's better to end it with a complete full stop. The homeroom teacher swallowed hard. She stared at me blankly, while my mother bowed deeply toward her. "I won't cause you any trouble. The Education Bureau won't come after you, because the moment you discovered my letter, I had already submitted my withdrawal application to the principal's office. I revealed a smile and softly said, I love you. Until death do us part. The windows were still open. A gentle breeze drifted into the classroom, rustling the leaves outside, and also stirring her hair. She raised a hand in panic and tucked her hair back. At a complete loss, she took the letter from my hands. Everyone in the class was staring at us seriously. At that moment, not a single person made a sound. Flipping through the letter, she muttered blankly, impossible. You're lying to me. You're just messing with me on purpose. But as she flipped through my letter, she saw that her name was indeed written on it. Her cheeks instantly flushed red. Usually when someone confessed, the class would start cheering and teasing immediately. But today, no one made a sound. I took my mother's hand and walked outside. The homeroom teacher panicked. She rushed forward and grabbed my hand. We were standing in the hallway. The moment we left the classroom, an explosion of discussion erupted inside the class. Windows were thrown open one after another. Many students couldn't help sticking their heads out to secretly watch us. I turned back to look at her. She lowered her head and tightly held onto my hand. Still, no one dared to tease us, but some students secretly broke school rules and took out their phones to photograph us. I softly said, let go. Otherwise people will misunderstand. The homeroom teacher quickly released my hand. She stood there motionless, her face completely red. In a pleading tone, she asked, can we talk? Do you remember me now? The park outside the hospital 10 years ago. She looked at my face. Finally, she softly replied, I remember now, but I never thought you would remember me for so long. More and more people gathered in the hallway to watch, perhaps afraid of all those eyes on her. The homeroom teacher asked me, can we find somewhere private and talk this through? I shook my head. No. I knew very well that under so many eyes, she was safe. If we talked in private, rumors would spread everywhere afterward. The Education Bureau would definitely force her to resign. I longed to be alone with her, but I knew I could not ruin her life. Her voice had already become choked with tears under the gaze of so many people. She finally dropped the stern mask she always wore. She became that helpless young girl again. She asked, were you really looking for me all this time? I softly answered. She stubbornly lifted her head and asked, so you really aren't going to continue school? You keep saying you wanted to fight for your future, but now you're not even going to university. Wouldn't that make these 10 years meaningless? Struggling isn't limited to school, I said. A person struggles throughout their entire life. When I devote my whole life to a career I love, isn't that also proof that I tried my best? Isn't it? She didn't know how to argue back. Anxiously, she said, just finish school, okay? I can pretend none of this ever happened. You can continue being a good student and honestly take the college entrance exam. But I love you, I said. She froze. Blankly, she asked, what does taking the exam have to do with whether or not you love me? I replied, by the time I graduate, the outstanding men around you will already be old enough to become company executives. Do you know? A 28-year-old man might already walk into a 4S dealership holding the keys to an Audi, having someone service his car. And if I followed the normal path and went to college, I would just be holding a contract, kneeling on one knee beside him, introducing maintenance packages as an intern. She couldn't help but say, you're crazy. Why are you competing with grown men over your pride? Ever since the day I fell in love with you, I've already gone crazy, she said with a trembling voice. But I thought you would say that you'd asked me to wait for you for 4 years or something. I said in confusion, I love you. Why would I selfishly ask you to wait for me and waste the best years of your life? And even if you agreed, it might just be a temporary excuse to calm me down, right? She panicked and grabbed my arm, saying emotionally, isn't this selfish of you too? If you didn't like me, then you could just focus on college properly, using your love for me as an excuse, saying you're afraid you can't wait, and throwing away for important years of your life, making me live in guilt for the rest of my life. Isn't that also a kind of selfishness? In her agitation, she even raised her hand as if to slap me. But in the end, the slap never came down. She cried and said through tears, why are you rushing your life like this? If you fail in the future, then the biggest reason for your failure will be me. I stayed silent. She wiped away her tears and cried, you handed me that love letter. Don't you want an answer? I can answer you right now. As long as you're willing to finish high school and take the college entrance exam, I'll be your girlfriend. Before she could finish speaking, I reached out and hugged her. She froze. I held her tightly. Just like that time 10 years ago. The same warmth. The same lavender scent. But I was no longer a little boy. I whispered in her ear, "No need. Your rejection would hurt me, and your acceptance would make me anxious. I know what a forbidden love means. Even if I came back to you after graduation, it would still ruin your future. If you're willing, I want to make a promise with you." Holding my arms, she even forgot to push me away. I could feel how fast her heart was beating. She stammered and asked, "What promise?" I said, "I'll come back for you in 2 years." She cried and said, "In just 2 years? What kind of future can you possibly build?" I smiled. "If I can't build a future, then it only means I haven't given my all for you yet." I let go of her, taking one last look at her adorable expression. Then I finally turned around and left, leaving behind only one sentence. 2 years later, I'll come back for you. 30,000 likes, female leads POV. I stood there foolishly, watching my student walk away. My heart hurt so much that I clutched my chest. It hurt so badly that even breathing became difficult. He thought I had forgotten, but I had always remembered that crying little boy. 10 years ago, when I was still in school, someone told me that lately someone had been secretly asking about me. I found it rather strange. Anyone who's been to school knows that if a stranger asks around about you at school, there are only 2 possibilities. Either some weirdo wants to pursue you, or you're about to get beaten up after school. I told my best friend about it, and she was furious too. The 2 of us gathered our courage and wanted to see who was asking about me. In the end, we saw a little boy awkwardly stopping a male student, saying, "Big brother, can I ask you something?" The 2 of us burst out laughing. I told my best friend about it, and she sighed emotionally. What a sin. He's still so young. I rolled my eyes helplessly. Maybe the kid just wanted to thank me. But after that, things started to feel strange. It was all because my best friend got curious while the little boy was asking about me. She started her own investigation. Coincidentally, her younger sister attended the same school as the boy. Eventually, she excitedly told me what kind of person that little brother really was. I had long known that he skipped classes every day to go home, to cook and prepare medicine for his seriously ill mother. I also knew that he had asked about my grades. From that day on, he never skipped class again. I didn't think much of it. Who would take a child seriously? But my best friend loved gossiping about it. She would always excitedly tell me that little brother improved by hundreds of ranks in school. That little brother ranked in the top 10 of the whole school. That little brother says he wants to get into the high school you attended. I didn't find it annoying, because I liked seeing someone work hard and improve themselves. At first, I only treated it as gossip, even though I was the heroine of the story. Until I returned home to become a teacher, until he walked into my classroom. The first time I saw him, I wanted to tell him, "I remember you," but I didn't dare, because the way he looked at me wasn't right. It was sincere and passionate, with an indescribable feeling mixed in. When my best friend found out about it, she excitedly kept slapping my shoulder, so hard that it almost broke my bones. I told her not to overthink it. It's impossible. But she bit on her milk tea straw excitedly and said, "Are you seriously kidding me? Such a good boy, and you're sure you won't make a move?" I said helplessly, "Impossible, teacher." My best friend teased, "Then quit your job. Anyway, your family forced you into this ordinary path. You never even wanted to become a teacher." I admired the little brother, but I didn't have those kinds of feelings. I thought that for such a hard-working boy, any girl would admire him. Until one classroom inspection during break time, I found his love letter. When I saw his decision to drop out, I completely panicked. I went to discuss it with my best friend. After hearing it, she stayed surprisingly calm. She stared blankly at me and said, "You really brought this upon yourself." I was already on the verge of breaking down. I had no mood to listen to her jokes, thinking about how this admirable young boy was going to give up his education because of me. I truly felt terribly guilty. In the end, I made a bold decision. I was going to make him hate me. I asked my best friend to help me think of a way, but she kept shaking her head. She said, "You may have underestimated this boy's determination." I clenched my teeth. No matter how strong his determination was, I would crush it before it could grow. I confiscated the love letter and deliberately called in his parents. I wanted his parents to read it aloud in class. During the whole process, I kept mocking him. I had already planned it out. Once most of it had been read, I would take back the letter and tear it up. There was no need to finish it. Boys at that age care deeply about their pride. Who could endure such humiliation? I wanted to become the person he hated most, so he would give up on me and peacefully finish university. But what I never expected was that he wouldn't back down. He even walked onto the podium and voluntarily began reading the love letter himself, no matter how many people mocked and ridiculed him. He seriously read the entire letter to the end. I stood there completely at a loss. I was someone who always followed the rules, but he wasn't. I truly never expected it, just like my best friend said. I had underestimated his determination to make him finish the college entrance exam. I even considered using a delaying tactic, pretending that I could become his girlfriend, and then taking it back after the exams were over. But he rejected me instead. As I watched his departing figure, I suddenly felt a sharp pain in my heart for some reason. Didn't he say he loved me very much? I had already agreed to be his girlfriend, even if it was only a delaying tactic. Couldn't he at least treat it as a motivation to get into college for me? The boy left. He had suddenly barged into my life, and then suddenly left again. I didn't want to cry in front of so many people, so I endured my sadness and called my best friend to pick me up after work. This time, she wasn't listening out of curiosity or gossip, but after hearing everything, she seriously asked, "Were you really lying to him? You were planning to reject him after he finished the college entrance exam?" I said nothing. I couldn't understand why my best friend continued saying, "What's so strange about an older woman, younger man relationship? He was just a younger boy at first. You're the one who complicated everything. You were only forced by your parents to become a teacher for 3 or 4 years, but he searched for you for 10 years. Didn't he?" I said. For a moment, I really did want to resign. "What moment?" "When he turned around and left. I checked up on him for you. Maybe this will make you feel a little better." That boy might not be worth cherishing after all. He went to learn hairstyling from a salon owner. I frowned slightly when I heard that. So much for those 2 years. He talked so grandly. And in the end, he just went to learn hairstyling. Even if he was exceptionally talented, it would still take at least 5 years to enter the top tier. But something still felt off to me. A man who could persist for 10 whole years. I just couldn't believe he would make such a careless decision. As expected, the Education Bureau summoned me for a talk. They hoped I would be more mindful of my influence and keep my distance from students in the future. They had no idea that this ill-fated connection had begun many years ago. 3 months later, my best friend contacted me again. As soon as she saw me, she mysteriously said, "Something's not right." I asked, "What do you mean?" She said, "My sister told me the boy isn't cutting people's hair. He's grooming cats and dogs. One session costs 128 yuan. I remember you liked kittens the most, but you never dared to keep one because you were afraid your parents would get angry." I was quite surprised when I heard that. I said in disbelief, "I really do like kittens, but my own haircut only costs 35 yuan. And you're telling me grooming cats and dogs costs 128? That's not the important part, okay?" She asked, "Which shop is he working at?" "He works at the shop during the day, and at night he sets up a stall by the riverside. On his days off, he even provides house call services. At the same time, he also started an account online. I suspect he wants to build followers and open his own shop someday." I blankly asked, "Doesn't he need any rest?" "I don't know, let's just observe for now. With that kind of insane workload, I doubt he can last more than half a year, out of pure curiosity." I searched for his account online. His page was full of videos of him. He wore a mask, while carefully grooming a little dog. His gentle voice and lively movements, combined with the scars on his hands from pet scratches, somehow made him look a little handsome. I shook my head hard, telling myself not to think nonsense. A year later, my best friend excitedly told me again, "You underestimated him. He's opened his own shop now." I wasn't surprised at all. With that kind of work intensity, he was probably living and eating at the shop too. Saving enough money within a year to open a small store wouldn't be difficult for him. Even though I wasn't surprised, I still couldn't help checking his account again. Sure enough, it was a small shop. At the moment, it mainly operated by reservation. But since it was newly opened, the prices were very discounted. So many people were booking. The key point was, when I checked the reservations, the entire month was fully booked. I wondered if he ever rested. Wouldn't his body collapse from exhaustion? He seemed far too busy. and even posted a video looking to hire an assistant. Many girls who loved pets applied for the job, but the boy politely pinned a comment saying that he hoped the assistant would be male. My best friend seriously asked me, "Are you really going to keep that promise?" I asked, "What, are you really going to make him wait the full 2 years? You never even wanted this job in the first place. He's been chasing after you for 11 years. If your heart ever ached for him, even once, then right now is when he needs support the most. He's been paying the price for his impulsiveness all this time because of you. So why can't you be impulsive just once too?" But my parents arranged a blind date for me today. The guy's conditions are pretty good. I was thinking, maybe marrying someone my age step by step like everyone else would be better. Did a donkey kick your brain or something? I looked at my best friend's messages and didn't know how to reply. Be impulsive for once sounded nice. But if I really was impulsive, we would spend the rest of our lives trapped in public criticism. I still decided to go on a blind date. The other man's conditions really were excellent. I put on beautiful makeup. Considering the blind date's income, I deliberately chose a subtly attractive outfit, 70% innocent, 30% the kind of look that seemed both pure and alluring. After I finished my makeup, my best friend saw that I still wasn't replying, so she couldn't help sending a voice message scolding me. Can't you be brave just once? Do the job you truly like and face the person who truly likes you. I ignored my best friend and hurried out the door. How could I possibly act impulsively? The blind date earned 500,000 yuan a year. Meanwhile, the younger guy's shop was only busy because of opening discounts. Who knew how long it could survive in the future? The blind date's parents both worked stable government jobs, but the younger guy had to work 14 hours every day just to open a shop of his own. The gap was simply too huge. If I followed the normal path, I could live a very good life. I'd have an accomplished husband. Both families would have excellent backgrounds. And my own job would be respectable too. But, I didn't know why. But I drove my little Wuling Hongwang Mini EV, heading straight toward the pet grooming shop. The blind date sent me a message, asking where we should meet tonight. I replied with a simple sorry. I parked my car on the street outside the grooming shop. As night fell, I watched the younger guy busily working inside, from 6 to 8, from 8 to 10, until midnight. After the last customer left, he sat down on a chair in exhaustion and rubbed his shoulders. He no longer looked like the spirited boy from before. He had learned to style his hair with wax, wore French-style workwear, and a face mask. Somehow, he looked a little mature and attractive. I didn't even know why. I stayed sitting in the car for so long. I had always lived step by step, never doing anything this impulsive before. Maybe I should just leave. I thought maybe he already regretted everything. Suddenly, he took off his mask. The weather was cold and dry, and he took out a lychee-flavored lip balm from his pocket, looking at the familiar packaging and brand. For some reason, I dazedly stepped out of the car. I pushed open the door, the bell rang, and he hurriedly turned around saying, "Welcome." Then he froze. He stared at me blankly, the lip balm still pressed against the corner of his lips. For 11 years, he had been the one taking steps toward me. Clearly, I could have simply enjoyed the results, standing still without moving at all, waiting for him to take the 12th year step too, and observing his financial situation first. That had obviously been my biggest concern. But in my mind, I kept remembering what my best friend had said. Right now is the year he needs help the most. I awkwardly looked at the little cat on the floor, not daring to meet his eyes. In a small voice, I said, "I don't think I really liked being a teacher. I saw that you were hiring, so I came to ask about the salary." He put away the lip balm and stood up, walking in front of me. Only then did I realize he was a head taller than me now, maybe because of our identities before. I'd never paid attention to the height difference. He said, "Revenue. I mean, how much would my salary be?" He looked into my eyes and said slowly, word by word, "You could have all of it." I suddenly felt dizzy. Then he pulled down the shop's rolling shutter. I stammered nervously. "I just thought that if you really got rich within 2 years, then wouldn't I seem very materialistic afterward?" "Don't misunderstand. It's not that I cared that much about your money. I was just considering my reputation." Suddenly, he cupped my face in his hands. "What are you doing?" I looked into his serious eyes. Could he be trying to kiss me? I instantly became nervous, but he merely raised his hand and gently applied the lip balm onto my lips. "Your lips are chapped," he said. The atmosphere became awkward. Neither of us knew what to say. Finally, I whispered, "That Chanel scarf was from you, you idiot." When he heard my answer, He suddenly reached out and held my hand. I quickly stepped aside. No. His hand froze awkwardly in midair. I stammered. You can only hold my hand after I finish the resignation process. All right, it's already been 11 years. A few more days won't matter. But I need you to promise me one thing too. What? I don't want you making hasty decisions because of me. From now on, at night, you're not allowed to. I'll tutor you. You absolutely must take the college entrance exam. If you give up the exam because of me, I'll regret it for the rest of my life. He hesitated for a moment, then finally smiled. Okay. I thought my parents were definitely going to scold me when I got home tonight. From then on, I helped the younger guy at work during the day. During the day, I helped him at the shop. At night, I tutored him. Every now and then, my mom would scold me. 2 years later, although he and I had managed the shop quite well, in order to save money, we held our wedding and his university entrance celebration on the same day. Inside the hotel dressing room, I was wearing a wedding dress, and he was wearing a suit. I reminded him to study business management seriously once he got to university. Our shop had already become somewhat well known. When you come back after graduating, I'll be counting on you to turn it into a chain brand. He nodded. Amy. My mom doesn't scold me anymore. She keeps praising you for being so capable. She goes around telling everyone that her son-in-law got into a top university. Why do you keep what are you thinking about? I want to call you wife. Go ahead then. I'm already your wife now.